Welcome to The Last Call, where we try to clear up many of the misinformation concerning the drone community.
Hey, what's going on, folks? It's Dre here, Recovery One Drones. I'm not sure what's going on. People talking about some folks have canceled their shows for the holiday weekend. I treat this as a time to relax and do more creative things that I don't normally get to do. I mean, this has been the first weekend I've had off since my anniversary, early July. I pretty much spent a whole almost 50 days straight working nonstop, no weekends off. So I got to sleep in a little bit this weekend, got up and watched a live session of Formula One. So I'm pretty jazzed. So I don't know. I know Art canceled his show yesterday. People are telling me Paul canceled his show tonight, which I thought he had a show scheduled. Maybe I just misread, maybe it's scheduled for next week or something. So, so I'm pretty jazzed. I'm sitting around the house today, pretty much got my honey-do list done. So I got some time on my hands. So I figure I might well go ahead and do a little live stream with nothing else going on. And just address some things that I've seen pop up online and try to, as I say, put out some straight scoop of what is and what isn't and stuff. I know so far we got East Coast Thrills was just here a little early, first in the chat. Uh, then there was Stephen Drones came in. And as always, Mr. Live Stream himself, Northside Hawk, Dominic's in the house. And then we saw Time to Fly, Mr. Al Diaz. And Steve Make It Happen Videos is here. Lance Cadena. Appreciate you, Lance. Jump in. Mr. JSK. Man, he's rare. Mr. Jim's Droning. Welcome, welcome. Lens Capture Online. Tom, how you doing, partner? I will see you guys soon. I'm just got a quick reminder. I'm looking for that invoice, man. Better send it quick before I spend this money up. What else we got? Okay, we got, I said Jim. Okay. Oh, I got a celebrity in the house. An actual celebrity. One of the Drone Nation guys is in my live stream, folks. We know it's got to be a special occasion, especially when he has time to actually sit and enjoy a live stream. I don't want to give out his name because I don't want the crowd to rush him real quick. But if you know who he is by his chat name, then you know who it is. But we always appreciate his presence. I say before I know it, I might even get a visit from some of his cohorts from his show and stuff. Because I think they canceled their show for tomorrow evening due to the actual holiday, Labor Day being on a Monday. So, Mr. DeMarco, we appreciate your presence and bringing the standards of my live stream up a little higher. I don't pull in 40 plus, people like you guys do. Well, I appreciate what you do, man. You're a great dad. You are in your kids' lives daily, coaching, being there, watching them play. Those are things that are essential in a child's life. Most of us can remember, even at my age, the times that our parents were there watching us play Little League, Pop Warner, and all those different things that we did from that age all the way up through high school and in college, if you played at that level, as having your family there to see you put on a show. So I say it's very impactful, especially when they're young, for seeing them to turn around and see mom and dad, other siblings, even grandparents sitting in the bleachers, cheering them on, So like I say, I give you a tip of the cap, DeMarco, for being that dad. Appreciate it. AZ Drone Dude in the house. Appreciate you, partner, coming in. Nice. I think I said JSK. I say GSK and stuff, but JSK's in the house and everything. And like I said, for all my years of working, law enforcement and other jobs I've had, a holiday was just another day because somebody's always working. And I remember in my early years, I had to work all the holidays, New Year's Eve, Christmas, Thanksgiving. I worked all those holidays, dude. I remember being in a car chase Thanksgiving morning, just came out of the barn. Next you know, we get a 211 call at a 7-Eleven. And we pull up, and the guys, they're all shook up and everything. And he gave us a description of the car and everything else. And we got a tip. Somebody saw the vehicle. We're racing down through the streets of Long Beach and everything else. End up cornering individuals in a laundry room, an apartment complex. And so we brought them out for a field check. And the victim was kind of reluctant to identify him because of, come to find out, the two suspects were females who robbed him. So he was a little hesitant to point them out in the field, but we got the arrest done. But that was one of those, Thanksgiving mornings, I remember being out on Christmas mornings, and getting calls for service and everything else. So you never know what you run into. Mr. Cool Cat from the other side of the pond. Appreciate you, partner. Appreciate you. coming in. Yeah, I just, like I said, those who just came in, I'm filling in for all those folks who took the weekend off. Like I said, I'm just sitting around the house and I felt a little creative and I want to address some things I've seen in the Facebook mainly chat groups, and just want to address a few things and go over some stuff. And not that I want to put on a rant or anything like that. It's just I'd like to give out some real good information on a certain subject that I keep seeing crop up. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen those questions crop up. A lot of us are in the Old Farts Facebook group, and I've seen that question pop up several times there. I see it pop up in a lot of the other groups that I'm a part of, as far as the drone mapping group and thermal analysis group and things of that nature. So we're going to cover some things there. I'm going to wait a little longer before I get rolling. I don't have no rush tonight. I'm not sure if Uncle Bill's coming on tonight. I saw him on Paul Murray's, I think it was either Saturday or Friday. He was on there, so I'm not sure what his itinerary is for tonight. So I know he usually comes in from work from the bowling alley, but being a holiday weekend, I don't know if the hours are extended or they might have closed down early. Who knows? But I'm filling in a little time slot. Talk to some folks I haven't talked to in a while, because this last month was busy. Like I say, I'm just a part-time operator when it comes to my drone work. And I worked every weekend this past month. Financially, it was a big boom month for me. But like I say, it cost me in my time and effort. So I had to put it out there. But, you do what you do because you want to do it. You enjoy doing it. And like I said, when I get up Monday through Thursday and every other Friday, I have to set an alarm to make sure I don't oversleep. But when it's my name and my brand, I don't even need an alarm clock. I'm up usually around a little after 3:30, and I'm trying to hit the road. So I'm at whatever site I'm at for that day. So if I'm doing just mapping for that day, I'm waiting for the sun to come up to get started. If I had to go down and do same thing, if I'm setting GCPs on a site, same thing. I'm getting my base station up, trying to get the satellites locked in so I can go ahead and set these ground control points in their spot and go from there. Hey, Captain Joe in the house. Okay, he said Uncle Bill should be on already. Sent out links. Okay, he's not waiting for a record time slot. Shame on him. I say, be polite, Uncle Bill. Stay in your lane. All righty. So what we're going to do right now, like I always say, I am sponsored by Air Data. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this Air Data commercial. So here we go, and we'll get started after this brief announcement.
Last call is sponsored by Air Data, world's most trusted flight data platform. Use promo code Recovery1Drone20 for 20% discount on your subscription.
All righty. It is now almost a quarter after. I got actually 14 after here on my clock. Wherever you may be, it's 14 after somewhere, wherever you may be at. And the question I'm going to address tonight concerns the DJI Mini 3 Pro and the Mini 4 Pro. And as always, we know that many of us and others get into the drone hobby or profession, wherever you decide to get yourself into. Let me go ahead and square this away because it is jumping around like crazy. At a very minimum cost, I should say, for the most part. So we always want to make sure How come that's not staying set? Okay, here we go. Oh, doesn't want to set. Okay, we'll make it work no matter what. But like I say, people get in at this level and they enjoy it, what they have seen it do, and now they have start to explore. Hey, TJ, start to explore potential opportunities to generate a little revenue for themselves. Like always, I always emphasize, don't quit your day job. You know, I always try to tell people, if you can incorporate what a drone does into your regular work, that is the best way to get into it, because then you're still being paid to do something that you enjoy doing. That is how I did it. Okay. And that worked out great for me. I still do a lot of work for the city. I get called upon from different departments within the city that I work for to film events or keep up on projects. We have several capital improvement projects in my city that I do a lot of, filming for. And I pass it on to either the different departments or to the actual engineers that are keeping track of those projects. So that's what I've done to build my portfolio up, to put on my website, to put on YouTube and wherever else, the videos I do for the city. So that way I'm getting paid for my time. I'm not giving away anything. And voila, there it is. So that kind of sustained me to get my foot in the door doing, I would say, commercial level work, because everything I do is commercial work to speak of. So like I tell a lot of people, I start off doing the grunt work, working for a lot of those I call it drone dealer people, the drone base, Droners.io, and everything else. But what I'm going to talk about today is that drone mapping is one of the fastest growing part of the drone industry. As it becomes the norm in the construction industry to use drones. Let me say quick hello to Quick Cat. I know he's another, I believe he's from the UK also, so I want to be polite to our foreign people. So welcome, brother. Stuff. But, I say drone mapping is something that is pretty easy to get into, but you can make some big mistakes if you're not careful. And that's why I want to address some things with the smaller drones that a lot of people who believe or think they can use these drones to accomplish this. Now, I'll be first to say, you can do mapping with any drone out there, even with the original Mini 1, SE, Mini 2, if you're doing it for yourself, just to practice, just to fart around with, whatever else. Yeah, it will accomplish the task and let you get a 2D or even 3D model of what you want to present for yourself. But when you're starting to do things for other people, either it be actual commercial work, actual work for even nonprofits or anyone else, basically what I'm saying is when it's not a recreational flight, it falls under Part 107 rules. If your flight is not purely for recreational purpose, you fall under Part 107 rules and guidelines. And that even means looking at your own roof, the neighbor's roof, whatever that case may be, that is non-recreational flights. Okay? So, Jim, you're so close, we just throw a rock and we hit you and we call you part of the clan, okay? So you're not foreigner. No big deal. So that's why we try to stress to people that when you do these type of activities, even though you may not get a nickel in your pocket, it is still a non-recreational flight. Okay? And that's why we always say that the real reason someone gets in trouble is because, one, they post it online and talk about it, and they expose themselves. 2, something happens. An incident happens. You have a crash or you're involved in some other incident that gets you exposed to the authorities. Those are the 2 main ways that someone gets caught. And one of the 2 main charges that are presented to you are flying an unregistered or unlicensed, or you're not a properly licensed individual for the type of flight that you had. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Okay. So let's go on to this Mini 3 stuff here. Okay. DJI Mini 3 Pro. It says here, for mapping vast and complex terrains full of detail, you will need an app. And I'm going to break this down. I'm not going to just run right through. I'm going to break it down. And when they talk about the app, we know that the basic Fly app that comes with the Mini 3 Pro and the Mini 4 Pro does not support mapping type work waypoints. Okay. And you go on here and you will read that you need a map like this. At the time, the Mini 3 Pro isn't compatible with the mapping apps such as DJI Pilot, DJI Pilot 2, Drone Link, Drone Deploy. I don't know what DH Mobile is, or they talk about the older DJI Ground Station Pro. So unless you're flying manually, which is a real pain in the butt. So basically, unless you're like doing rooftop type of stuff, it would take you several hours to do a manual of several acres to do it manually. All right. So let me scroll up here. And it continues on the mapping zone into a specific route in which the drone will fly automatically. That's what we're talking about, autonomous flying, that you set a pattern for the drone and it will go fly it. Okay. Now let's move on to the DJI Mini 4, because the first thing it says for the Mini 4, it says, yes, you can rest assured, as it is compatible with the most famous mapping apps like Drone Deploy and Pix4D. But this is the first caveat that you got to remember. The Mini 3 Pro, the Mini 4 Pro, I want to say the Mini 2S, all right, and I think there's a couple other problems, and we know the Mavic 3 doesn't have a release of the SDK file, so it can't do the mapping work also. But like it says here, it lacks a mechanical shutter. Like I said, you can fly this for yourself, no problems. You'll get whatever results you'll get. Okay. And you can use programs like WebOM to process it, and you'll get what you get. But when you're talking about doing work for someone else, there's a certain baseline standard that's basically sets the requirements of what you need to have to do commercial level work. Okay. And it goes on, talks about the flying time, 31 minutes, which is great and everything else. But like I say, a mechanical shutter is quite important. And we'll get to that down the road also. Now, people who've been around and say, well, I've used the Mavic 2 Pro and in the past for mapping, and I'll tell them the same thing. Yeah, it's capable of doing it, but it has that electronic rolling shutter. All right. So that's the holdback on the Mavic 2 Pro for doing mapping, is that electronic shutter is not equivalent to the mechanical shutter. All right. Now, this is another thing that we have here. It says, please note that the DJI Mini 3 Pro or 4 Pro does not have the option to turn on terrain follow. Okay. Terrain follow is something that a lot of people don't even know about. Terrain follow is morely about accuracy and how good your maps or the results of your maps can be. There's a lot of levels to the accuracy, but this is one of them here, be able to terrain follow. Even the Phantom 4 Pro V1 is capable of doing terrain follow. The V2 terrain follow. Okay. All your enterprise level drones are capable of doing terrain follow. And it comes to be important when you have elevation changes of more than, I will go down as far as maybe 50 feet. Definitely you have terrain differences of 100 feet. You need to have terrain follow. And people might say, well, what's the big deal? The big, like I say, is accuracy. When you can still fly a map, not use terrain follow, but then it's not as accurate because the high places on the map in a 2D presentation is equivalent to the low places. So basically, geometrically, I can't even say the word, is not going to be equivalent, to put it in a better term, without me stumbling over the words. Okay, so the high points will look the same as the low points. That's not good. You don't want that. Okay, so that's one feature. It talks about in active track mode, you can have terrain follow, but active track, you can't have active track when you're doing map. The active track is just what it says. It's tracking something. Okay, unless you're gonna go out and run the whole map area in a precise manner, then you might be able to work that out, but I doubt it. Okay. Now, this is where we get to the standard baseline requirements for mapping. And that's why I say the Mini 3, Mini 4, the Mavic 2S, this is where they don't come into play. The standard requirements, basic requirements, 1-inch sensor on the camera, 20 megapixels. Now I know the Mini 3, Mini 4 can give you 48 megapixels and all that kind of stuff, but they all lack that 1-inch sensor. And people say, what's the big deal with the 1-inch sensor? It's the depth, the dynamic range of what the camera can produce. That is why it's always been a baseline standard of the camera needs to be a 1-inch sensor and a minimum of a 20 megapixel shot. And that's why the Phantom 4 Pro to this day is one of the workhorses in the industry, still being worked in the industry. Even with the Mavic enterprise levels that are out there, people who haven't transitioned yet are still using those Phantom 4 Pros to get the job done because it meets the baseline standard of that 1-inch sensor, 20 megapixel picture quality. Okay. Now, as technology has advanced and everything else that comes along, now I just talked about the bare minimum, but this is what's coming into play today. All right. This is what's coming into play today is RTK. RTK is what the game is all about now. Real-time kinematic. GPS RTK. It is a technique to achieve 1 centimeter positional accuracy using correction data from a GNSS satellites. Okay. All of our drones get GPS satellites when we fly. That's how they hold their positions. The better the GPS is in your drone, the more steady it holds its position in place. And that's why we always talk about people who go out and fly, and sometimes we get in a hurry and we don't allow the drone to acquire a sufficient amount of satellites before we take off. And that has been a real reason in the past of why people have had flyaways, because they didn't have GPS lock to know that, so the drone would know where it's at, where it came from, and it'd just take off. One of my rules personally is that I don't take off until I reach at least 11 satellites minimum. The more the better. You start dipping down below 11 satellites, you gotta remember, you can lose a satellite during the flight. You can lose a couple satellites during the flight, just as much as you can gain a couple satellites during your flight. So if you start off with 10 satellites and you drop a couple more, now you're down to 8 or 7. And your drone may decide to say, you know what, I'm out of here. See you later. So RTK is essential when doing mapping because it brings, once again, we talk about that accuracy. Just like terrain awareness makes a better accurate map. RTK, because RTK is like GPS on steroids. It just adds more satellites to what you already have. East Coast KP index is not as much of a factor as it is than compared to using RTK. If I'm flying non-RTK drone, KP index may be a factor I pay attention to. I don't do anything nowadays without having RTK hooked up. So I'm getting, like I say, RTK is like GPS on steroids. When you used to get 20, 25 satellites, now you're getting 35, 40 satellites, depending upon what the constellation is in your area. Okay, so it just enhances your drone's ability to bring in more data, to be more accurate on where you're at. Okay, I thought somebody was getting naked. I'm watching Jim's comments in the chat and stuff. So that's what we got there. Now we're going to get back to RTK in a little bit. We're going to talk about another part of RTK. And this is why I talk about the same thing. The Mini 3 Pro, the Mini 4 Pro, the Mavic 2 Air S, none of them are equipped to work with RTK. So once again, you're not meeting the standard, the baseline standards of producing accurate information. So you're going out trying to do work or present work to someone, and they start asking questions about where's the georeference data in your shots. Because when each shot you take, when your drone has an RTK module on it or is built into it, it adds all the RTK data is imprinted on each photo that it takes, every last one of them. So that's where the engineers, the surveyors get their information, because it creates a whole separate file for that information within the pictures themselves, and it creates a separate file, and they can compare those files to their data based upon known points. And we're going to talk about known points too. So let's get on to NTRIP. NTRIP is basically land-based RTK stations. All right. A lot of states have them. In many states, they're free to use once you get an account. I know the state of Florida has one. I have one here in the state of California. I believe state of Michigan has it. But I think in Illinois, that state doesn't have one, or it does not have one across the whole state. So you would have to get a private account with a third party who makes it available, and then it may have to cost you money. So that's a cost factor by going to an NTRIP. Now, me personally, I'm not a big fan of NTRIP service because from my experience here in California, it's inconsistent. Just to put it in one word, it's inconsistent at best. I live here where I live at. I'm close to the San Andreas Fault, so I have at least 4 NTRIP stations within 10 miles of my house. And when you're talking about getting NTRIP information, there are 3 levels of that you get. We have a single solution, we have a float solution, and then you have a fixed solution. Now, a single solution doesn't really give you any accuracy at all. None at all. The float solution means you're within at least 2 to 3 meters of where your point may actually be. So if I'm standing in my driveway and I'm in a float solution, that means I could be anywhere from a good 10 to 15 feet off to where I'm actually standing. The fixed solution means you are within that 1 centimeter accuracy area. And 1 centimeter basically is like 1 foot. It's a little bit in between 1 foot, a little over, whatever case may be. And that's why they talk about that 1 centimeter or less. And that's what they want. And that's what a fixed position data gives you. Now for the equipment I use, I have the Emlets RS2 Plus. I also have the Rover, and it turns different colors. If it's just a single solution, it stays white. If I get a float solution, it'll turn yellow. And if I get a fixed solution, it turns green. Now, I'm going to move on a little bit like that, and we'll talk about it here. Let me go back and read this. It says, N-Trip is used and transmit RTK GPS data from a base station to a mobile receiver, allowing, let me get next screen here, allowing the mobile receiver to calculate its precise position in real time. N-Trip is commonly used in surveying, mapping, and other applications where precise location information is required. The Mini 3 Pro, 4 Pro do not support this feature because they don't have RTK. Now, like I said before, I use a base station that has a rover, but my drone also acts as a rover. So when I set my base station up, the Emlet base station up, I can connect on my controller to that base station and use all the satellite data that base station brings in to my drone to fly the site. And it'll be accurate. Now, if that base station starts to get a little wonky or is losing signal from an N-Trip station, I will see it on my controller where it goes from a solid white on the RC Pro controller. It will turn yellow if I go to float mode. If it goes to single solution mode, it will just drop RTK altogether. And that's why I tell people, I said, if that happens during your flight, the drone itself can, I know on my Mavic 3 E's and M's, it will maintain for at least another 5-10 minutes, and then it will start to waver a little bit. Now, once again, you want to have a fixed solution for your map to be survey grade level. So if you lose your signal mid-flight, you might well hit the return to home button, come back, reset up your whole system, put a fresh battery in while you're at it, and start all over again. That's the pain in the butt. So you always want to make sure that your signal is strong, that your satellite level is strong, so you don't have to redo work that you've already done. Okay. Now, this right here, you're going to hear people talk about GCPs, ground control points, and RTK, all in the same sentence or definitely in the same paragraph. They kind of go hand in hand. A lot of people, hey, coast to coast, how you doing, partner? A lot of people who are old school in surveyor work, mapping work, live and die on GCPs. The technology has gotten so good now that a drone that has RTK can basically map a location without the use of GCPs. Now, with that being said, it is a good practice to use GCPs even though you're using RTK. It's like a double check system. The ground control points on the ground double checks the RTK information on the drone in the air. And people want to argue sometimes. I always tell people I said, they talking about, oh, drone's not reliable. I always tell people, I said, when you set a ground control point, a GCP, you just don't throw it on the ground haphazardly. You know, you have to go out, use a base station, either on a known point or you create a point where you're at, and you go out there and take your rover on a rod, and you shoot that ground control point. And I always tell people, I said, so when I go out and set a GCP using the same base station that I'm using with this rover on the ground, getting the coordinates of these ground control points, and I use the same base station to fly with my drone, why is the drone less accurate than the ones I just shot on the ground? Because the base station is the key. And then I hear crickets. And most time they don't respond. So I'm saying, you know, how is one more accurate than the other when the source is the same? So like I said, it all depends what camp people come out of. A lot of old school guys who came up using just GCPs, they live and breathe on those. And yes, you can fly. And that's why back in the day, the Phantom 4 Pros could be used for mapping even without RTK before it came out, because they had GCPs on the ground that were verified. So that was the check system. But now that we have RTK in the drones, and you also have GCPs on the ground, you put them both together and you have a double check balance system. So one verifies the other. Okay. So let's move on here. Did I go? Okay, I ran through that. All right. So let's go back here. All right. So that's why I tell people, when you get these mini drones and some of the other drones that don't meet the baseline level of the actual work that needs to be done, it's kind of hard to try to encourage you to do certain things or go out there and help you find clients, because everybody wants to know, well, how do I find a client? How do I do this? How do I do that? And I said, well, basically you don't have the real necessary gear to present to someone to do work. And I tell people all the time, I said, when one of us do poor work, it affects all of us. Just like I said, when one of us go out and fly recklessly, it affects all of us. And the same thing. Drones are more widely used in construction industry, infrastructure, pipeline, telecom, you know, all that kind of different areas where drones are more frequently being used. But you could be dealing with the guy who said, let me give this a chance and see how it works out for us. And when it does not give the results that they're thinking it's supposed to, or what they were told is going to be, now you have just ruined it for the rest of us who may come after you. And now we're treated as suspect as far as being able to do something. The first thing they're going to say is, well, that's what happened with the last guy. And we all been through that for certain reasons, whatever thing. Well, that's what happened with the last guy. That's why I don't trust this or that. Because the last guy sold me a bill of goods. Didn't produce what he said. This stuff, I sent this stuff to a surveyor, and he said, this is a waste of my time. Because it does not meet the standards of what they need. And sometimes that's how it works out, where you'll deal with a builder, and then he'll take that information over to an engineer or to a surveyor after the fact, instead of going to the surveyor and engineer first, and then they tell him what they need. Sometimes they work it backwards. So these are the things that, you know, we got to be prepared for. And just like, you know, you talk about people like Jeff Norman, Vic Moss, these are photography people. And they'll tell you point blank, you need to know certain things about photography to produce a quality level product for people. You know, you just don't go out there and buy a point and shoot and think you're going to go out there and present this to somebody who's looking for something a little more detailed, a little more higher end. And then on top of that, you're charging them or requesting to be paid that type of money. So it's like I said, you got to know a little bit what you're doing, know what the baselines are and what you can produce. When people ask me about getting the mapping, and I asked them, what drone do you have already? All this kind of stuff. And they said, I have this. I said, okay. And now the first thing they said, well, I don't have the money for a Mavic 3E, or, I don't want to spend that kind of money. I said, well, go into the used market and find you a Phantom 4 Pro V2. That at least get your foot in the door, and you'll be able to produce baseline level products as long as someone's putting GCPs on the ground for you. Now, that's where I started at with the Phantoms. Now I'm out setting GCPs along with flying sights. So like I say, I started, back in the day, 6 years ago, doing this kind of stuff and worked my way to where I'm at now. And hopefully in another year, two, whatever, if I see the market really being driven towards LiDAR, I know there is a market out there. I have not yet been asked about it, and the people I work with. So, it may become more like anything else. Everything goes in a wave, and we'll see what happens. We'll go for there and see what happens. And that's when I will make the decision to make that investment. Because when you start talking about doing LiDAR work, just the equipment itself, you're talking about anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 investment of just trying to get the equipment. And that's why I kind of laugh when I hear people ask about, oh, can I rent such and such equipment? And it always bring me back to that movie with Harrison Ford, Clear and Present Danger, where he goes to rent the helicopter down in South America. And the guy tells him, how much to rent the helicopter? And the guy says, $1 million. And he asks him, how much to buy the helicopter? $1 million. And tell you the truth, that's what I feel about my drones. If someone called me and asked me, you want to rent my M30T? I said, 16 grand. They said, what are you talking about? I said, because by you asking me, can you rent it? That tells me you had never flown one before, or you don't even own one yourself, because you need to rent mine. So I need to make sure I'm covered. So if you crash it, you damage it or whatever, I can afford to buy a replacement. Simple as that. And I have gotten calls from companies asking to borrow the batteries to my M30T. And I told them $750. Because that's what it costs me to replace them. $750 just for the batteries for that thing. So that's just business. So like I tell people, these are the things you got to look at, work your way up to it, unless you got some deep pockets. Like I say, my Phantoms have made me quite a bit of change over the years. And I still use a Phantom 4 RTK drone to this day because of airspace. I have two jobs that I have overlapping airspace in. They're down in the south end of Ontario, California, and the airspace overlaps from Ontario International Airport to a local Chino airport. And for Ontario, the grid is 400 feet, but I'm at the end of the bow tie for Chino, which locks me down at 197. So I had to submit an authorization request, FAA. They kind of turned me down right away, and I had to explain to them, hey, I'm in overlapping airspace. I need to get up to 400 and yada, 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 so I can submit the DJI to unlock it. Did all that, took my Mavic 3 out there. First, I took my Mavic 3M. It kept stopping at the 197. I'm like, what's going on here? I got, I put the same authorization into my Mavic 2 Pro that I took out there. No problem. Went to 400 feet. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Came back the next day, brought a Phantom with me. Same thing, Mavic 3M, wouldn't go above 197. put the same authorization in the Phantom, went all the way up 400 feet. So I have two jobs that are about a mile apart that I use the Phantom 4 RTK on for those jobs, because the Mavic 3M and I have bought a Mavic 3E, both of them will not go past the 197 restriction. And I talked to DJI about it. They can't figure it out or anything else. So I'm like, you know what? I just need to get these jobs done. So now I was thinking about retiring my Phantom 4 RTK. I said, now I still need it. It was going to be a backup drone, but now I see I use it every month. I've been doing those two jobs going on. I think I started those jobs back last November. I think one started in November, the other one started in January. And one of them I go out twice a month, the other one once a month. So that tells you, can just add that up to tell you how many times I've been out there to fly those locations every month. Hey, Matt, Matt, I really appreciate how you're using Dennis to get that awesome footage you've been posting, dude. Especially that one flying over the landscape. That was some of your best footage ever. And I make sure you thank Dennis for that effort that he put in. And stuff. Anybody else coming I might have missed? Okay, I got Bill, Coast to Coast. Okay, Matt, Jim's joining. Okay, good. But I just wanted to get on that, folks, that, there's nothing wrong buying the smaller drones. I just want to just inform people that there's a little bit more you need to learn about what a drone is capable of doing. When you're out there trying to convert yourself from a recreational pilot to a commercial pilot. It's just sometimes you bought a drone for a specific purpose, and that's what that drone does. And unfortunately, since DJI stopped production of the Phantom 4 Pro series, that was the most versatile drone DJI ever built. Autel never made anything to compete with it. Nobody else Parrot. The rest of them that can't touch it. And that's why to this day, the most famous figure of a drone is the silhouette of a Phantom 4. Most famous drone silhouette. When people talk about drones, that is the biggest thing you see, is a Phantom 4 silhouette out there. Because it was the most versatile drone. It was an excellent recreational drone, and it took a step right over the fence into commercial work without missing a beat. And that's what makes that drone such a great drone, and it's still being used today. There are people still trying to sell Phantom 4 RTK drones for outlandish prices. I've seen some as high as $8,000. I was lucky to get mine for $2,500 and stuff. But it's just how valuable the drone is to people, how much of a workhorse that it is, and everything else. T-Bag, how you doing, partner? He said, you have 107 flying an Air 2S. Like I said, I'm not saying if you're doing regular real estate work, great. You can do regular house real estate work with a Mini 2, Mini SE, Mini 3, Mini 4, real estate work. But when it comes to mapping, then you're in a whole different ballpark. Because the requirements of what you need to get to the baseline is a lot big different than doing that. And I always tell people, and they ask me, well, how come you don't do real estate? And I always tell people, I say, those who do real estate work are selling houses. I'm selling communities. That's the difference right there. I'm selling whole communities. Sites as big as 400 plus acres. The last couple of sites that I set GPCs on, I call those small sites because it only takes one battery to fly them. But one is 117 acres, the other one's 70 acres. Those are small sites. But they're communities with about at least anywhere between 50 to 100 houses on them. And most likely they're attached to other developments that may be getting built in the future. I've been doing one down in Menifee, California for the last month, and it's like 3 different sites down there, along with the newer houses that are already built. So I just tell folks, what I'm doing now is a double dip effort. I set GCPs and then I fly. So it's almost like I'm double dipping on my efforts, but I am putting in a lot of work to be able to double dip on these jobs. So that's what I'm saying, that, I always tell people, think about what you really want to do. If you got the drone for recreational purposes, let that drone be your recreational drone. And then buy the appropriate drone to do the commercial work. That's what you want to do. Trying to force a drone over to something else is going to eventually cause issues for you. You're going to get frustrated, or whoever you're doing work for is going to get frustrated on what you're trying to produce for them. So you should use the appropriate drones. And like I said, even the Mavic 3 itself, great drone, high quality photographs out of that 4/3 sensor camera, everything else. But don't try to use that on trying to do mapping work. And like I said, all those mini drones, you go on a job that requires RTK, you're out of luck. I haven't had a opportunity, QuickCat, to do wetland work. Most of my stuff is with housing developments. My main thing I do each month is housing developments and solar work. That's why I have a Mavic Enterprise Advance for my residential solar works, which means houses that got solar panels on it. And I have the M30T to do larger warehouses or solar farms. That's what I use that drone for. And like I said, I use my Mavic 3E primarily for the mapping, and I've kept my Phantom 4 RTK because when you're doing mapping work, RTK kind of comes in hand. And especially now that I'm setting GCPs, it is almost automatic that you're going to fly an RTK flight because you just took all that time setting GCPs with a base station. So it only comes right in hand that you're going to fly a drone that is RTK compatible or capable to use the same satellite system to fly it. How you doing, Kevin? Welcome. I am new to your lives, but I'm all about the industry, mostly real estate, and looking to branch into the solar and mapping. And that's what I said. You can do real estate, and like I say, doing real estate work, the drone is not the main thing. You'll be able to take about maybe 3 to 4 shots, maybe 5 shots for real estate outdoors. If you're doing some serious real estate work, a lot of your work is going to be indoors, showing off the amenities of the house. And the only person I know who does a really great job of that is Ken Dono. I have watched Ken over the years go from this basic point and shoot shots to where he does full production work now. And his stuff looked like something that came out of Hollywood. The way his editing skills have really risen up to a very high level, and everything else. That is what real estate is. That's where it's at now. It has evolved from just taking individual shots of a perimeter of a house or even indoor shots to where you're making a nice, smooth, cinematic, commercial level product that looks like it should be playing on TV while you're watching House of Dragons. Is the best way I can put it. That's the level of real estate is today. And it is a very heavily saturated market. And that's why I was never really interested in it. I did a few real estate shots, 6+ years ago when I first got started, but I never was into it because my background as a construction inspector, I knew where my strengths lie. And here being in Southern California, I knew solar was going to be a big thing. So I wanted to make sure I was ready for solar. in the long run. So I have my level 1 thermal certification. Not that I've had to use it, but it always looked good on paper when people talk to you and says, well, you know about thermal work. Well, I have a level 1 certification. I have XYZ drones to do the work with, all this kind of stuff. I understand what I'm looking for when I'm flying, even though I may not get asked to do a report, but I'm prepared to do a report. And usually you have to go to level 2 thermal analysis to actually be considered qualified to submit reports. It'd be at level 2 or higher. I think it goes up to level 3, but usually level 1, you can be an inspector, no problem. Level 2, inspector / report writer. Level 3, you are considered a god. So that's where you're at on that. So like I say, that's why I tell people, look at what you have in hand, look at what you have in your knowledge base that you can use towards your drones. In the most part, don't try to oversell something that you really don't have. You don't try to oversell something you really don't have. If you don't have the skill set, you don't have the actual drone to do the work, and you think you're going to go out and rent somebody else's drone, good luck with that. There are a few businesses that do rent out gear, and I say, that's why they're in business, to do what they do. But I know if you come to me on a personal level, it will cost you. Try to rent my stuff. So, like I say, it's almost 7 o'clock. I have stepped on Uncle Bill's time slot, so I appreciate the folks who came in here and listened to what I had to say. I appreciate everyone. If you're a newcomer, hey, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe. There's plenty of more of these live sessions that went back. I started doing this podcast back in January, so there's at least, matter of fact, January I started on a regular basis, but I got stuff that goes back to last year, starting with remote ID. If you happen to have a Mavic 2 Pro that is sitting as a paperweight on your desk, I have the correct installation information to get you up and flying again if you have a Mavic 2 Pro or the Mavic 2, I think the Mavic 2 Zoom series drones. So those have been going on for a while. And like I said, be safe out there. And I always say, hang on, enjoy the ride, and please subscribe. I will see you guys later on.